Hello guys, this is Joshua Hawes. As you can tell by the title of the video, I'm doing a non-spoiler review. Don't worry, no spoilers, so don't have to worry about that. But a non-spoiler review for Spider-Man No Way Home. My most anticipated movie of the year. I've had so much just hype for this film, and did it live up to my expectation? Did it end up being the best film of the year? Short answer, yes. Yes, it 100% did. So this is just going to be a review. Here's the thing: don't be that please don't be that person who puts spoilers in the comments. All those people that put leaks on YouTube and you recommend that. Don't be the person that goes and spoil this movie for anyone, because this is an experience people need to see firsthand without knowing anything. So it's just don't be the person who spoils it. It's just not nice. That's all I have to say. And I'd recommend, if you haven't seen the film, just in case. I understand this is more for bigger YouTubers, obviously, but if you want to be safe, maybe don't read the comments. You can put a comment and try not look at the others. I trust you all to not do that, but if you want to be extra safe, that's my recommendation. Just try to stay off social media till you can see it. But yeah, let's get into the thoughts. We'll start with the good. And right off the bat, this film's fantastic. I think it's easily the best Spider-Man movie ever made. Yes, better than the original Spider-Man 2. I think it's better than that. It is just fantastic. And the villains are done really well because these are already established villains. So they don't go through the time of establishing these villains. And the story that they tell is just, it's definitely the most dramatic, most tense, basically the toughest situation that Peter Parker, Tom Holland, Spider-Man's been in. This is where he shines and gets to be a superhero. Because although it ties into the MCU and Doctor Strange in the film, unlike the other films that kind of relying on its tie into the MCU, this doesn't. This is still Peter Parker Spider-Man story. This film. This is still his story, and this is going to be one of those films that's going to be incredibly rewarding if you're a massive fan of Tom Holland's Spider-Man, because it can kind of, in my opinion, completes his journey of being someone before this film he is learning, he makes mistakes, he's having smaller scale films. I don't know how to describe it, but he's just learning. He's not developed as much, which I loved, because it means each film he gets more heroic and more heroic. He learns from his mistakes. And this film, halfway through the film, there's this scene. I won't spoil it because it's a big scene, but it's a scene that reminisces and just reminds you so much about the Spider-Man mythology that has the turn from his head from fun-loving hero who just wants to control every entire life and not have, piles. He just wants to... I don't know the right words to describe it, but if you've seen the films and then you watch this film, you know what I'm talking about. But there's that specific moment that leads to the somehow being a lot more dramatic, but also him completing his journey from learner to full-fledged superhero. That journey is complete. So when we see him in future films, and even at the end of it, he feels like established hero. He feels like that Spider-Man from that they kind of introduced right off the bat in the older films, which was still good, but it means because of that journey, it took more than just one film to get there. It's so rewarding when it gets there, and that's why it puts no doubt in my mind that Tom Holland's the best Spider-Man. He just understands Spider-Man. And the great thing about these villains is that, because we've got to talk about the villains, because they brought, as we can tell by the trailer, they brought villains from different Marvel projects into this film. So your Green Goblins, your Doc Ocks, your Electros, from the older Spider-Man films. And they do a really good job at making them stay within their characters, while also putting them in this situation in a different environment, and not have to completely change their characters to fit in the movie. They found a way to keep their characters and have them still fit in with this movie. And Doctor Strange plays his role well, but he's nowhere near the pilot. He's not in the film really anywhere as much as the trailers make it out to be. Like, he really isn't. So, yeah, and this film is also rewarding, not just for the newer fans that see it, but it's so rewarding for the people who've been Spider-Man fans for years, since the very first cinematic movie in 2002 with Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man. It rewards you for that level of hard work. Even if you haven't watched them all since then, it rewards you for being a fan of those movies. It rewards you, and it has moments and storyline purposes that are just so rewarded when you see it play out on the screen. The story, I think, is just the best Spider-Man story they've told. The action is fantastic. The special effects, brilliant. It's like a top tier. This is like this movie is an event. This isn't just a movie. This is an event. This is, in my opinion, close to 8. It's around the top 4, definitely top 5, maybe even top 3. I'm not sure. It is definitely my top 5 though. It is around that kind of area. It's kind of, in terms of event movies, it's on the same level as Infinity War and Endgame. And maybe if I rewatch it and learn new stuff about it, it could potentially be better than Endgame. It's not there right now. I'd say it's my second favourite. I'd say it's my second favourite MCU film right now. But if it could realistically, when I learn more about the story and just things that didn't click the first time I rewatch it, it could potentially become my favourite MCU film, because it is literally that close. Like, there's not a huge gap between those films, and that says a lot, because I thought Endgame was a film you couldn't beat. Marvel was going to have trouble beating that for their future films, and the fact that they might have already done it when I come to rewatching the film is just fantastic. I just don't know what to say. I don't want to reveal too much, but this movie is just fantastic. Let's go into some mixed aspects. Nothing that's outright bad or necessarily I dislike, because there's no bads. There's just some like meh kind of situations with the film. First of all, this is just more information. There's 2 post-credit scenes, a mid-credit scene and a post-credit scene. The mid-credit scene is a lot of fun if you know what it is. Not everyone, I don't think, is going to know what it is. But if you know what's going on, you know what the context is, a really fun scene. The second one, even if you haven't watched anything outside the MCU, you will understand it, and it is a pretty cool reveal that builds to something else to come, a future movie. So, and both do build to something else in the MCU, but I'm just saying the mid-credit scene, you might have trouble understand if you don't watch things outside of the MCU. And that's why I want to go into one of the things, not the only thing I want to go into the mix. Before I go into the mix, another thing that's a bit mixed is that this film is in 2 halves. There's the first half that feels a lot like the original, not the original, the first 2 Tom Holland Spider-Man films, or kind of what Tom Holland's been doing before. Like the fun little adventures, it's cool seeing these villains return from different Spider-Man movies. It's a lot of fun. It's just a fun adventure. And the second half is where this film becomes amazing. There's, once again, with that specific turning point in the film that leads to Tom Holland completing his journey to becoming the hero Spider-Man instead of the learner, that he can become the serious Spider-Man. That's where the film takes a shift and it really becomes serious, and we see this change as Spider-Man and what the movies I feel like are going to be like going forward. And if that's what they're going to be like going forward, I am hyped, because they've confirmed another trilogy. I think it's still going to be the MCU, but we never know, because there were issues with Sony before, and Spider-Man 3 wasn't originally going to be in the MCU. It had left, but they've sorted things out with Sony, so it's back in. So I don't know what the deal was, whether just to have that Spider-Man 3 be the end of it, and the new trilogy is not set in the MCU, it's kind of its own thing. I don't know, but at the moment, from what it seems like and the way they've ended it, it looks like it's still going to be part of the MCU, which I really like. And this film doesn't rely on the MCU, as I say. It's just a great Spider-Man movie. So that's just something I kind of. That's just something I was saying. It looks like the new trilogy's coming, but I was saying. Where was I? Yes, the first half. The first half is fine. It's enjoyable. It's fun. But it's not going to be to everyone's taste, because if you weren't a fan of that kind of style, not seen the true Spider-Man in the original two films, and yeah, it might be a bit annoying, and at times it is a bit, the way they lead to the adventure is kind of a bit simple compared to all the complicated stuff they do in the second half that is rewarded to any and all Spider-Man fans. So that's something I will say. And another mix, and this isn't a negative for me because I've seen the other films that are not in the MCU, but if you haven't, you're not gonna understand everything in this film. You're probably, I still think you're gonna find this a very enjoyable film and even a really good film. But to truly realize why people think this is an amazing, fantastic, pretty much exceptional movie is if you'd watched those past films. So I'm talking the original Sam Raimi trilogy, which is Spider-Man, Spider-Man 2, and Spider-Man 3. And if you see The Amazing Spider-Man, The Amazing Spider-Man 2, and if you've seen the Venom movies, because if you watch Venom, you know where the mid-credit scene kind of leads us to have a way where it actually makes sense for the MCU. I won't go too much into it if you haven't seen it, but it's been out for months. So, yeah, I won't. So, yeah, you kind of to truly understand everything about it. You're kind of going to have to watch the other films because the villains, they don't establish their story. They say lines so you have a rough idea, but you don't truly, they don't have time to truly go into this story because they rely that you know their stories, you know their journeys from this point. Because they do specify in the movie when they were taken out of their universe for this universe. So they rely on you to know their stories and what they've been through because they do not have time to, because there's so much stuff going on with this film and so many villains anyway. They do not have the time to build their stories. They don't have the time. They just don't. It's nothing against. They just. This movie's already 2.5 hours. Like they just simply don't have the time to give all these characters backstory, so they have to rely that you know their backstory. And with Venom, I won't go too into it because it's a non-spoiler. But it's not a big thing, so it's a small thing. So even if you watch the original Spider-Man films but haven't seen Venom, you'll be fine. You'll be fine. But that scene, you're going to be very confused about what is going on, who are their characters, you might not even know. So that's all I'll say. There's nothing outright bad, but I just thought I'd mention those mixed aspects because it could impact how much you like this movie. Don't get me wrong, if you're a fan of Marvel, a fan of the MCU, if you love the MCU but haven't seen the other stuff, I still think you'll really enjoy this movie. But I don't think you will love it as much as you could without it. Because not just about the establishing of the villains. There's literally pop spots and scenes in this film that are intentionally designed to remind you about the past Spider-Man movies not set in this world. It's intentionally designed that way, where the way the characters react to those situations and everything, it is designed that way. So it won't feel as rewarding if you haven't seen those films, but I still think it'll be really enjoyable. So overall thoughts, this is a top tier Marvel movie. Definitely the best Spider-Man movie. Definitely the second best MCU movie. One of my favourite Marvel movies, and it could potentially become a number one. Rewatching and learning new stuff. I hope you all enjoyed this video. I'll see you all in the next one. Bye guys!